I thought my name Sarah was just a name. Something my parents chose because it was classic timeless, maybe because it meant princess in Hebrew, or simply because it felt right when they first held me. But when my father died 3 months ago, I found a photograph tucked away in his desk drawer. Behind it, a note written in his careful handwriting, Sarah. If she ever finds out, will she forgive me? That's when I realized the man who raised me wasn't my biological father, and I was named after the man who ruined their lives. I grew up in Cedar Falls, a small town in Wisconsin, where Main Street still had a genuine hardware store, and Friday night football games brought out half the population. We lived in a white 2-story farmhouse with a wraparound porch, surrounded by cornfields that stretched to the horizon. Dad worked as head custodian at Cedar Falls High School, coming home each evening with stories about teenage pranks and broken lockers that he somehow made sound important. Mom worked part-time at the town library, filling our comfortable silences with updates about book club gossip and plans for weekend trips to the county fair. You came to us after the hardest winter of our lives. Mom would tell me while braiding my hair for school. You were exactly what we needed to remember that spring always comes. I never understood what she meant by the hardest winter. The first crack in my understanding came during my cousin's baby shower when I was 33. My Uncle Dave had been drinking beer since the afternoon barbecue started, and by evening his family filters had disappeared. You know what's funny, Sarah? He said, studying my face across the picnic table. You don't look anything like your dad. Different bone structure, different coloring. Then again, neither did he. The comment hung in the humid summer air. Later, as Mom and I cleaned up paper plates and plastic cups, I asked what Uncle Dave meant. Oh, you know Dave, she said, not meeting my eyes. He says things when he's been drinking. Don't pay attention to him. When I brought it up with Dad, he was washing dishes at the kitchen sink, looking out at his vegetable garden. Your uncle had too many beers, he said simply. People say foolish things when they've been drinking. But Dad's shoulders had tensed in a way I'd never seen before. 2 months later, Dad collapsed in the school hallway during his afternoon rounds. Massive stroke. He was gone before the ambulance reached Regional Medical Center. A week after the funeral, Mom asked me to help clean out Dad's study. The bottom drawer of his old roll-top desk stuck, and when it finally gave way, I found a small wooden box wedged in the back. Inside was a single-color photograph from the 1980s. The photo showed a young man standing next to a younger version of my mother at what looked like a county fair. They were both smiling, his arm around her waist, a Ferris wheel visible in the background. But it was his face that made my breath catch. The same sandy brown hair I saw in the mirror every morning. The same green eyes. The same dimpled chin. I flipped it over. In Dad's handwriting, Sarah. If she ever finds out, will she forgive me? I found Mom in the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee. She took one look at my face and knew. You found it, she said quietly. I set the photograph on the kitchen table. Who is he? Mom's hands trembled as she picked up her coffee mug. His name was Ryan Mitchell. He was the love of my life before I met your father, and we were together for 2 years. I thought we were going to get married. She finally looked at me. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified to tell him. I waited 3 weeks, then asked him to meet me at Miller's Diner, where we used to go every Saturday morning. She paused. He never showed up. I waited 2 hours. His roommate told me he'd left for Chicago that morning. No forwarding address. No goodbye. The words hit like physical blows. He didn't even know. He was 24, scared of commitment, always talking about maybe moving to the city to pursue his music career. Mom's voice grew softer. I was pregnant and completely alone. Too proud to call my parents in Milwaukee. How did you meet Dad? 4 months later at the library. I was reading pregnancy books, trying to figure out how to take care of a baby alone. He was studying for his GED. He'd dropped out of high school to help support his family after his father died. A small smile crossed her face. He asked if I was excited about becoming a mother. When I started crying right there at the reading table, he handed me his handkerchief and sat with me until I stopped. And he knew about the pregnancy. From the beginning. On our 3rd date, he said something I'll never forget. Love isn't about where you come from. It's about where you choose to go together. But why name me Sarah? Mom's face crumpled slightly. That was his idea. He said he didn't want you wondering about the man who gave you life, even if that man wasn't worthy of being your father. Your name would honor the good parts without erasing the complicated truth. The note. Your father struggled with whether to tell you. He wrote that note when you turned 18, then again at 25, probably a dozen times. He kept meaning to have the conversation, but could never find the right words. That night I drove to Miller's Pond, where Dad had taught me to fish, and sat on the old wooden dock. I was furious at Ryan Mitchell for abandoning a pregnant woman at Dad, for keeping secrets at myself, for not seeing what was right in front of me. But as I listened to the bullfrogs and watched fireflies dance over the water, I started thinking about all the small moments. Dad teaching me to drive his old pickup truck in empty parking lots, staying up all night when I had pneumonia, cheering loudest at my high school volleyball games. The way he'd looked at me when I brought boyfriends home, protective but trusting. How he'd cried when I graduated from UW-Madison, proud of the first person in our family to finish college. This man who'd chosen to love me before I was even born, he was my father. Not because of DNA, but because of choice and daily commitment. 3 weeks later, I went back to Mom with the photograph. I need to know more about him, I said. Not to find him, but because his choices shaped our family. Over the next few hours, Mom told me about Ryan Mitchell, a talented guitar player who dreamed of making it in Chicago's music scene. Charming but immature, passionate but unreliable. He wasn't a bad person, Mom said carefully. He was just young, scared. He wasn't ready for love that asks you to stay when things get complicated. Do you know what happened to him? I heard he moved to Chicago, played in some bands that never made it. Got married in his 30s, maybe had kids. But I stopped keeping track after you were born. That evening, I sat by Dad's grave in Cedar Falls Cemetery and told him everything. I told him I understood why he'd kept the secret, but wished he'd trusted me. I told him I was grateful for the father he'd chosen to be. And I told him I forgave him for the secret, just like I was learning to forgive Ryan Mitchell for his absence. These days, when people ask about my name, I tell them the truth. I'm named after my biological father, but raised by the man who chose to be my dad. Some people expect me to be angry or searching for my real father. They don't understand that family isn't a biology test. It's a daily choice to love someone enough to stay. I still carry the name Sarah, but now I understand its weight differently. It's not just the name of a man who ran away. It's the name my father chose as a way of honoring the complicated truth of how our family came to be. Mom is dating someone now, a retired teacher who makes her laugh and helps her with the church bake sales. Dad would approve. If you're carrying a family secret, here's what I want you to know. The truth has weight, but it doesn't have to be a burden. Love is bigger than biology. Family is stronger than secrets. Sometimes the most important thing isn't where you came from, but who chose to love you along the way. The man who raised me taught me that. His name was James Morrison, and he was the best father a daughter could ask for. That's not a secret, that's just the truth.